All right, I think we are live on Facebook right now at the Spirituality and Practice page. And I'm delighted to have everyone here, especially Valarie Kaur. I want to introduce her just briefly. Valarie is a civil rights activist, a lawyer, a filmmaker, and founder of the Revolutionary Love Project. She was born in 1981, the daughter of Sikh farmers in California. She's a graduate of Harvard, Stanford, and Yale in law and religious studies. Her personal engagement as an activist began in the days immediately following 9/11, when Valarie was just 20 years old and a family friend in Arizona, a fellow Sikh who Valarie called uncle, became the first person murdered in a 9/11 related hate crime. She is herself a Sikh teacher of profound importance today, introducing Sikh teachings with simplicity and grace. I think we can all learn from her, and I'm looking forward to that today. She lives with her husband and their 2 children in Los Angeles, and her book, See No Stranger, a memoir and manifesto of revolutionary love, is new in paperback and is highly recommended and is part of what we're here to talk about today. But we also just want to hear from Valarie. So Valarie, welcome and thank you for joining us.
Oh, John, it's a delight to be with you and to be with this beautiful community, even virtually. I can still feel the energy of it. Thank you.
Now, for those people who do not yet know you and your work, would you introduce yourself, expanding on what I've already said, and tell us just something about your personal journey?
Oh, my story begins before me, as all good stories do. My grandfather sailed by steamship from India to California in 1913, and I was born on the land that he farmed. So for more than a century, my family has lived and farmed in the Central Valley of California. And my first memories of being on this earth was being undone by wonder. I mean, we lived out in the country, and so surrounded by peaches and plums and orchards on all sides of us. And so I remember, talking to the stars at night as if they were my friends, and playing with the cows across the fence and the horses. And it was as if I could look upon the face of anything or anyone and say, "You are a part of me I do not yet know." That initial orientation of wonder with everything around you, with that embodied sense of oneness, was severed quite immediately when I started public school. The first racial slur I ever heard was when I was 6 years old, and it was, "Get up, you black dog." I ran home to my grandfather, who lived with me, my mother's father, and he would just dry my tears, and then he would tell me stories of my Sikh ancestors, of sages and warriors and poets and pioneers. And it was as if it created this long shimmering arc that stretched from India to America and ended with me. And he would tell me the story of the first Sikh woman warrior. You can see her behind me. Mai Pago was her name. When 40 soldiers abandoned the fight during a great battle, she donned a turban, she mounted a horse and said, "No, you won't abandon your post. I will lead you back into the fire." And so she became the first Sikh woman warrior, the Sant Sipai, the sage warrior. The warrior fights, the sage loves. My grandfather taught me it was a path of a revolutionary kind of love. So he would look down, I was a little girl who liked to ride tractors and talk to the stars, 2 long braids. But my grandfather saw, he would say, "My dear, don't abandon your post." He saw me as a warrior. And John, I feel like my entire life since then has been this beautiful attempt to keep the promise I made to my grandfather to not abandon my post.
So how did you become courageous? I mean, you were taught by great teachers, and you have this rich tradition, but how did you become courageous? I mean, it can't just be passed on from grandfather to grandchild, can it, or can it?
Well, if there is such a thing as intergenerational trauma, and the scientists, studying brain imaging are telling us so, right? Then I think that there must be such a thing as intergenerational wisdom, intergenerational resilience, and that perhaps we all have ancestors, no matter who we are, who have survived enough to let us be able to inherit not just their fear or their trauma, but their source of bravery. So I feel like there's something of that might be true. There's also, what does it mean to be courageous? My first real test, I'm like, will you abandon your post, came when I was a kid in college. Remember watching the towers fall again and again between an image of a man with a turban and beard. He looked like my grandfather. I realized that our nation's new enemy after 9/11 looked like my family. And within hours, there were stories of hate violence erupting on city streets all across America against Muslim Americans and Sikh Americans with these turbans that were meant to represent our commitment to love and fight for justice for all. How ironic that these very turbans then marked my people for hate in America. So there are beatings and stabbings and gurdwaras on fire. And then 4 days later, we got the phone call from Arizona that Balbir Singh Sodhi had been killed, Balbir uncle.
Mm.
It was the first of countless people whose lives have been lost or shattered by the way our nation responded to 9/11. And the hate violence, the state violence, the 2 decades of war, he was the first. And I remember, you ask, what does it mean to be courageous? I disappeared into my bedroom and locked the door. It was too overwhelming. I didn't want to think about what it meant to be an American with our country under attack. I didn't want to own who I was as a Sikh when my family was under attack. I felt the trauma, the terror in my body, and I needed escape. And so I had all these beautiful books, including, Guru Granth Sahib, my scriptures on our shelf. And what I pulled down was Harry Potter. And I lost myself in the world of Harry Potter for days. And when I think about it now, I'm like, of course, I chose a story where the young people had the courage to wield a kind of magic against the dark arts when the adults in their lives wouldn't or couldn't. And so, I didn't have a wand, but I had an old camera and I had a list of questions. So within days, I found myself crossing the country on a road trip, going from city to city, home to home, capturing stories of hate crimes that weren't not making the evening news. And, John, I wasn't planning to become an activist. I wanted to become a professor of religion. And yet it wasn't a choice. It was a matter of life or death. And that one, maybe courage is just the ability to sit with one's fear and take that one step. There's a line from Guru Granth Sahib, from our scriptures, that you take one step toward Vaikuru and Vaikuru takes 1,000 steps toward you. You just take that one step and then it's like you're surrendering to a journey, because the next step appears and the next and the next. And before I knew it, I made my first film, Divided We Fall, and went to law school, began to file lawsuits and lead campaigns and make more films and write this book. And in the last 20 years, I could never have planned the story. It was just thinking about your life as a series of callings. And only in retrospect does it look courageous. But it doesn't feel like that in the moment. So when I talk to young people especially, I'm like, oh, it's just, can you listen for that one step that you might be able to take?
You're reminding me of a great quote in my tradition from St. John Vianney, who a bunch of people were asking him, how could you be so holy? You're so holy, and he was very annoyed sort of by the tone of the question. And his response was, it's not about holiness. I just take the trouble. I just take the trouble.
Yeah, or good trouble, right? In the words of John Lewis. I often think about, when we make our social justice heroes, from King to Gandhi to Mandela to John Lewis to RBG, when we turn them into saints, we strip them of their power because we're refusing to see their full humanity, and we're letting ourselves off the hook. But if they can choose love again and again and again, if they can choose with their fear to take that courageous step, then so can we. So I love that concept. I go back to what my grandfather held up before my eyes of the Sant Sipahi, the sage and the warrior. The sage is enraptured by the world as it is, and the warrior labors for the world as it ought to be.
Well, yeah. Thank you. Now I want to talk about revolutionary love. I
Mm,
want I want to ask, why love? I mean, you talk about love a lot, and your book is about love. Why love? Why revolutionary? And then tell us, what is the Revolutionary Love Project?
yeah, so good. Um, I have to be honest. After I went through my law school training, anytime someone stood on a podium and said love was the answer, I would roll my eyes. Like, we're up against institutions that perpetuate injustice, like structures that perpetuate oppression. What is love in the face of that? And I realized, in the process of stepping away, of writing this book, of really asking myself how to sustain social change over the long haul, I returned to the lessons of my childhood and the kind of love on the lips of my grandfather, and realized that, our greatest spiritual teachers, our greatest social justice reformers, they didn't talk about love as a feeling that comes and goes. Love is this muscular ethic. And I remember that moment my son was placed on my chest and I was shaking and sobbing from that rush of feeling. And I thought, I'm falling in love. This is love. And I was falling. There's a place for the falling. But in the meantime, my mother was opening her bag and taking out her doll and Joel and proceeding to feed me, feeding her baby as I'm feeding mine. And that's when I began to understand the definition of love that she lived. Love is more than a rush of emotion. Love is sweet labor, fierce, bloody, imperfect, life giving, a choice we make again and again. And if love is a kind of labor, then love contains all of our human emotions. So joy is the gift of love. Grief, the kind of grief so many of us are carrying now between the pandemic and the racial reckonings and the climate catastrophe, that kind of grief is the price of love. You grieve because you access how deeply you have loved. Rage, I always thought that anger was the opposite of love. No, your rage is what you harness to protect that which you love. We need our rage in order to access our own agency. So once I began to understand that love is a kind of labor, then love can be taught, love can be modeled, love can be practiced. So what happens if we take that kind of love that we inhabit in our closest relationships and direct it out there beyond what evolution requires? What happens when we choose to enter into labor for others, for our opponents, for ourselves, who we too often neglect? That is what I call revolutionary love. And I believe that with all of the crises that we are managing right now, out in the world, in our own intimate lives, the only way to sustain longevity and resilience is not if we are running on cynicism or despair, but if we are practicing a revolutionary kind of love in every choice that we make each day. I've come to think about my life as a series of experiments with revolutionary love. And I've spent the last 20 years organizing around hate. Now that I have found revolutionary love, I'll be spending the next 20 years organizing around love. So we have created this big, beautiful learning hub, Jon. People can access it at seenostranger.com. It's all free. It's this platform with practices and tools and curricula and guided inquiries, because I believe that anti-racism is the bridge, but beloved community, breeding beloved community here and now, that is the destination. And that is something that each of us has a role in playing.
Oh, well, no, I love it. I love the love and the revolutionary love. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, Gandhi, Rosa Parks, I mean, they didn't really talk about love so much, did they? It was about resistance. It was about nonviolence. It was about uh, uh, community. It was about brotherhood,
Mm.
siblinghood, but not so much love. Do you feel like you're expanding on the teachings of some of these people, or are you discovering something that was there that just wasn't emphasized in the way that you want to bring it out in
Mm.
today's environment?
Oh, it's almost as if I got really quiet and I tried to hear the through line, the silver thread running through their lives, their labors, these movements. I mean, for Gandhi, he talked about ahimsa, nonviolence, but then he would say love is the most durable force on earth. It was a kind of love without limit that was the root of a nonviolent approach to injustice. When I think about Rosa Parks and Dr. King and the civil rights movement and all those unnamed heroes, it was the agape love that animated that. the agape love that was different from the other kinds of love that were more limited. This, again, love without limits. So I really was inspired by Bell Hooks when she declared that the love ethic should be the foundation of every arena of our public life. And I thought, well, what is the how? If we've heard this kind of call to love appear in different languages, in different contexts, in different movements, for not just for centuries, but for thousands of years, right? Jesus to love thy neighbor, Muhammad to take in the orphan, Abraham to open our tent to all, Buddha, unending compassion. If we could hear that through line, that song, through the thousands of years, then perhaps our next great awakening, the next great leap of human consciousness is to be able to embody it, to scale it up, to structure our society on the love ethic. So it's as if I am taking what I see as the consolidated wisdom that is our great inheritance, and then putting it in a framework that's inviting people to like, okay, this is the how. Let's equip, if we can equip a critical mass of us to with the tools to build anti-racist, sustainable, beloved community where we are, then perhaps that's how we can transition humanity as a whole in the coming decades.
In the book, See No Stranger, you have 10 ways of practicing revolutionary love. You've alluded to them already a couple of times, but I mean, the first couple are wonder and grieving, and then fight and rage,
Yeah.
which of course is counterintuitive to most of us. So, but it's also something that we can understand a lot today. Fight and rage, I think I can understand a little bit more today than I can understand love, frankly. So how does love come together with fight and rage? Can you explain more about that?
Yeah. I remember, like many women, I'm a survivor of sexual assault. And the moment that I broke my silence, and told my story, I was in a room with extended family, and my mother was standing in front of me, between me and the rest of the room. And there was a rage roaring inside of her. There was fury in her eyes. I had never seen it. My mother was like, they wanted me to be silent. It's like, not my daughter. She will be free. And I had never seen that much rage inside of my mother before. And it was as if she was teaching me that my body was beloved and that I was worthy of protecting. And that if she could access her rage to protect me, she was modeling how I could access my rage to protect my own body. And I think that is the lie that so many women and girls in particular are taught. People of color are taught that the opposite of love is rage, that you're only as good or spiritual or as beloved as your ability to choke down your rage. But no, my love, that's just a clever way to sever you off from the fight impulse. We fight, flight, or freeze. Like to harness the fight impulse, to feel the heartbeat, to feel your fist clench, is to honor what it means to be fully alive in this body. And the solution is not to suppress it. It's to decide how you want to harness it. Do you want to harness that fight impulse in ways that blind you and create more despair and destruction? Or do you want to harness it in nonviolent ways that might be able to order the world, bring about the world that you want? And so the reason I have fight and rage as part of those practices of what it means to love well is to invite people to honor human impulses, human emotions, gain intimacy with the powerful energies that are moving through us. And with rage, the solution is not to suppress it or to let it explode, like so many men and boys are taught in our culture, right? The solution is to be able to process it in safe containers as our ancestors did. The drumming and the wailing and the beating and the crying and the dancing and the drumming, right? Once we do that, once we have an external relationship with our rage, we can ask ourselves, what information does this rage carry? And how do I want to harness this for what I do in the world? And I call that harnessed rage divine rage. The aim of divine rage is not vengeance. The aim of divine rage is to reorder the world. And I know, Jon, especially this is a community that is, around spiritual practices, that some might feel really uncomfortable with this language and might feel like it's antithetical to what our traditions teach us. But I say we just have to look closer. Think of the fury in the eyes of Jesus when you overturn the tables of the money changers in the temple, or or the fury in the eyes of the woman warrior when she went to battle against the oppression of empire. I think this kind of divine rage is modeled in ways that we can take it up now. And lately, I really sit at the feet of Black women, Black feminist leaders like Audre Lorde, like Bell Hooks. Audre Lorde tells us to listen to our rage as if it's a symphony, to learn how to dance with it. And so this is, I end up practicing this with my personal relationships too. When my husband and I are fighting, or my son throws a tantrum, right? Step away to rage, return to listen, reimagine solutions together. So it's a healthy part of what it means to sustain yourself in a labor for love.
Thanks. Yeah, and I now I want to talk about interfaith, multi-faith, interreligious. I mean, these are all aspects of your life, I know, and your teaching and your role in the world. Uh, how do you see? I mean, you are a Sikh teacher, but you also are an interfaith. You're involved in an interfaith life, and you are involved in interreligious organizing. And say something about what. How does your life intersect with all of these intersections?
Mm-hmm. Well, you can see this is the Ikomkad I always wear close to my heart. Ikomkad is the central, it's like the root of the Sikh faith. Ikomkad, oneness, the oneness of the world, the oneness of humanity. When Guru Nanak had his vision, the founder of the faith, he began to sing the song of oneness. Nako beri nahi bagana. Nako beri nahi bagana. I see no enemy. I see no stranger. I can look upon the face of anyone and say, you are a part of me I do not yet know. And if you do that, if you see others as sisters or brothers, then, Papaji used to say, my grandfather, love is dangerous business. For if I see you as my sister or brother, then I must let your grief into my heart. I must stand up for you when you are in harm's way. And that kind of love has always been disruptive, revolutionary. What happens when we see George Floyd as brother, or Brianna as sister, or migrant child at the border as our own sweet daughter? So I come to the work of love from my particular faith and my tradition. I think of our wisdom traditions as rivers, as rivers of long currents through thousands of years of stories and strong songs and scriptures, and we can see in a through line in those currents of that call to love. And some of us are coming from those traditions, and we want to continue to see, like, how do I want to direct the current now? How do I want to practice this and further it now? And that's certainly where I come from as a Sikh. But I feel like you can come from any number of currents. You can be someone who's inspired by the humanist tradition. You can be someone inspired by the arts and literature. You can be someone who is in love with science and the biological, cosmological fact that we belong to everything and everyone around us, right? Like you can take any of these as your sources of inspiration. And so what I'm proposing now is almost like transcending the multi-faith movement to say, love is a wellspring from which we all can drink. We can all have different sources of inspiration, as I do, and be proud of that and bring that into the labor. But the labor, how to wonder, how to listen, how to reimagine, how to breathe, how to push, those can be labors that all of us, no matter who we are, where we come from, can engage in together. So when I speak to people of faith, I say, well, you are specially positioned as midwives in this nation in transition because you have at your hand the love ethic embedded in these scriptures. This is your mandate, right? And I say to all others, you don't need religion. You don't need a particular specific spiritual practice to say, I too wish to participate in this great love story. And I have a role to play in not just, really, what's at stake? It's humanity itself, right? With climate change, it's, will we survive as a human race? Will we transition humanity into a sustainable future? For that, every single one of us has a role to play.
Could you offer a spiritual practice of some sort? I mean, I think I've seen you do this before in talks that you've given. And it's one of my favorite aspects of See No Stranger is how you weave this into the book itself. Could you offer something for our community?
I'd be happy to. I have two practices in mind, and maybe you can tell me which you feel most called to experience right now.
Uh, okay, all right.
One is about how to build beloved community, how to find your particular role in it, and the other is one that is returning us to an embodied sense of our interconnectedness. And all of them you can find on the Learning Hub, so don't feel like you'll miss out. But which one do you feel like, I
I'm
want to?
choosing the second one. The second one.
Yeah, okay, you
Yeah,
got it.
yeah.
All right, and how many minutes do we have together?
Oh, take 5, 6 minutes.
Okay, all right, beautiful. So I invite you to place your feet on the earth and notice the difference between holding your body up and letting the earth hold you up. You can lower your eyes, close your eyes for a moment, and turn your attention inward with a sense of curiosity, a sense of wonder. After hearing this conversation, being in this moment in your day, what are you carrying in your body in this moment? Notice temperature, constriction, ease. Now I ask you, where is grief living in your body in this moment? Without trying to change it or judge it, just noticing throat, belly. Good. Honor your grief. It is a sign of your deep capacity to care. I ask you now, where is rage living in your body in this moment? Without trying to change it or judge it, just noticing the veins in your wrists, your heartbeat, the saliva in your mouth. And if you can feel some of that anger inside of you, honor it. You have something worth fighting for. Good. And where is joy in your body in this moment? Notice the space around your heart, belly, feet. Good. And if it is difficult for you to access any of these things, the sensation of your grief or your anger or your joy, it's okay, my love. The fact that you are here right now means that you have not let numbness turn into paralysis. You are showing up and you are choosing to stay in community. For the truth is, we are never alone in our labors. So I invite you now to return to that sensation of your feet on the earth and go deeper with me. Imagine there are these roots that are shooting down from the center of your feet, down into the earth, rooting you. And as they root you into the earth, Notice if you can feel anything different in your spine, the dignity of your spine as you feel yourself held by the earth. Yes. Now imagine those roots powerfully pushing through horizontally now. They're spreading through the earth until your roots are finding my roots. Oh, do you feel that? Good. Our roots are intertwining, and then your roots are pushing out, and you're finding Jon's roots. Do you feel that? Good. Energetically pushing out through the earth. And they're connecting with all of the people, all of the beloveds who are breathing with you in this moment now. And now with this sensation, keeping some of your imagination there with the roots beneath the earth intertwined, I invite you to take a deep breath as if you're pulling that breath from the roots through the bottom of your feet, up into your body, up into all the places in your body that most need that kind of love and witness. Are you ready? Let it come. Let it go. And as you're exhaling, you're sending breath to us. Good. We're breathing together now. Let it come. Let it go. Let it come. Let it go. And one more time, powerfully taking in the energy that I'm sending you, we are sending you. Let it come. And let it go. We are like trees in the forest. We look as though we are standing apart, but we are interconnected. We are interdependent. And so you can place your hand on your heart now and just notice the quality of your body in that breathing together. And rest in whatever feels good. Let this feeling be the felt sense of love in your body. Let it give you energy for the rest of this beautiful day and the rest of your one precious life, knowing that you are enough, you are beloved, you have a particular role you are playing that no one on earth can play. And you are not alone. One more breath in, let it come. And let it go. And as you let it go, you can just shake your fingers. You can stretch to the sky. You can flutter your eyes open, knowing that anytime you feel you're trapped in the illusion of separateness and the illusion of aloneness, you only have to drop in, feeling feet on earth or back on earth, and feel this great, beautiful earth connecting us and giving you the energy that you need to keep on.
It was wonderful.
Breathing with me.
Thank you. I imagine you would make a very good midwife, Valarie.
You know, some people have called me that for for the heart as we are rebirthing ourselves, right?
Yes, yes. So that one life that we each have to live, you're living a pretty extraordinary one. Film and organizing and taking legal measures and activism, and I know you've gotten arrested, a lot of education and for yourself and educating others. Do you pause sometimes and think, what works, what doesn't work? Do you get discouraged? What do you do then?
Yeah. Yeah. Jon, all the things that you named for the last 20 years, it was like I was building this really elaborate toolkit. It's like the filmmaking, the organizing, the lawyering, and every action that we took, I just had this notion of linear progress in my mind. And when my babies were born, I had an all-out crisis. Hate crimes were skyrocketing. I became a mother right before the 2016 election season. So I thought, what was it all for? If not to make my babies be able to grow up in a nation safer for them than it was for me. And that's where I'm lucky that I got to sit at the feet of Black mothers and Indigenous mothers before me who, what my people have survived in the last 20 years or the last 100 years is not an aberration. It's just a continuation of what people of color have long had to fight for on the soil. And if I can see how they, even with the grief and the despair and the trauma, still sang to their babies. They still danced at night. They still showed up to the labor with humor. They did the work of tending the wounds, even as they fought the good fight. And the ones who lasted, Grace Lee Boggs, Chinese activist, lived to 100. How did she find longevity when the labor is so long and so hard? And her words stay with me. She says, movements will happen when victims of injustice stop seeing themselves as victims, but as pioneers, as new human beings, as pioneers and new ways of being human. That's the key now, isn't it? For us to embody what the new human should be, what community should be here and now. And so I've stopped looking at my labor as a means to an end. I see my labor now as an end in itself. And if I'm laboring for a more just and beautiful world with love, with this ethic of love, and with joy, then that has become the meaning of life.
Thank you. We have a couple of questions from folks on Facebook.
Yeah.
We have one from Karina, and I'm going to read it to you. How do you balance understanding these feelings as a source of power as opposed to the feelings having power over you?
Yeah. So good. Well, this is where the wisdom of the midwife is very useful, because she doesn't say push, just keep pushing. Like, what does it mean to push? To enter those uncomfortable sensations, those uncomfortable feelings, that uncomfortable process. So to just go so deep into the grief or into the rage or into the trauma so that it consumes you. No, my love, she says, there's wisdom in finding longevity in the labor resilience. She says, breathe, and then push, and then breathe again. And push, and then breathe again, my love. There's a kind of rhythm, a kind of cadence to sustain any long labor, whether it's the labor of, raising a family or rebirthing a nation or rebirthing oneself. So I find that if I dip into the emotion, if I push into it, if I allow myself to feel the grief and feel that discomfort, and then I come off, I back off, I rest, I walk, I listen, I do something else before I go back into the healing work, that I feel that I can go deeper the next time, just like in birthing labor, right? And, one should not go to battle alone or give birth alone, that you should always have midwives at your side. So who are the ones who can be with you, especially if you're dealing with serious traumas? I could never have healed from sexual assault or from police brutality alone. Self-care is an illusion. Self-care is a construct that works for only those who are privileged. What we need is community care, wraparound care. So what if we all are able to provide each other the care that the other needs? How can we build homes, schools, neighborhoods that are like that? And if you are someone who just needs to build that in a friend group around you, virtually or in person, there are ways to do it so that we are caring for one another as as we are all surviving, and we're all carrying unprecedented trauma right now. And those who are vulnerable, who have been vulnerable for a long time, even more so. So to discern your particular role, who you can provide care for, what your role is, what you need to receive, that's part of the wisdom of the breathing and pushing too.
And then we have a question from Norma.
Mm.
Norma asks, she says, and she asks, deeply grateful for your ideas and life-giving practices. Where can I rage safely without hurting my environment? Do I sacrifice myself and implode? Where are the virtues living in my body?
Oh, Norma, what a good question. And no, don't implode, my love. You don't need to implode. If you go to seenostranger.com and the Learning Hub, you'll see all of these ideas for what we call safe containers for rage. And I'll give you examples. I mean, what I found, this is really silly because it was really my son who taught me this. I got so angry when he would throw his tantrums, and he wasn't finding a safe container for rage. He made me really upset so that I would just scream at him back. And I realized, I don't have to feel guilty for feeling rage. I just have to find a way to process it. So I would literally go into my closet and throw clothes on the ground until I realized I would have to then fold the clothes. So then I turned to pillows. Very useful to turn pillows. You don't hurt yourself, you don't hurt others. You're throwing pillows on the ground. Another way is to scream into a pillow, just to let the vocals just out. You're just screaming with all your might. Formerly Eve Ensler, taught me the planned tantrum, where you're lying on the ground and you're moving your fists back and forth, and you're letting the sound out. You're letting the energies move through your body. And again, if the rage that you are carrying is from something seriously traumatic, then doing this with another, doing this with a midwife, with an accomplice, with someone who can hold you, who can be with you, to make sure that the harm is not done to self or others, is how then you find a relationship with that energy. You ask yourself, what information does my rage carry? Oh, I just want my son to be safe. I want our home to be harmonious. Okay. And then you start to wonder about him. Does he need an earlier snack or a earlier bedtime? You reimagine, right? You step away to rage, return to listen, reimagine a solution together. I feel like a lot of our ancestors had these traditions, the sweat lodges and the drumming and the dancing and the wailing and the fire, the bonfires. And I see more and more of us, working really hard to be culturally responsible and sensitive and take on some of these ancient technologies, ancient tools, to be able to process rage and grief safely. So to go to our Learning Hub, to do this on your own, to find a partner to do it with, and then to do it in community, is what I invite you to do, Norma. There's so much evidence of how suppressed rage wrecks the nervous system and the autoimmune system and wreaks havoc on the body. And that doesn't have to be our answer anymore as women of color, that there are ways then to dance with our anger.
I know that there are a lot of people joining us on Facebook midstream, and that's fine. We're talking with Valarie Kaur, who's the author of See No Stranger. And we call this off the page, but you need to get on the page too. You need to check out her book, which is out in paperback and which we reviewed enthusiastically at spiritualityandpractice.com. Also, if you're joining us midstream, you can watch this on our YouTube channel, at least by tomorrow morning, maybe sooner. Valarie, maybe the final question is to just ask you what's next. What are you doing now, other than probably giving so many talks that it gets tiring by the end of each day? But what's next for Valarie Kaur?
Oh, it's such a good question, because John, I literally just, returned from Phoenix, Arizona, where we held the 20-year memorial for Balbir Singh Sodhi, first person killed in a hate crime after 9/11. He was killed at his gas station, and we held, John, we transformed this gas station in Arizona into a temple, into a sacred place. We gathered there on the 20 years after he died, on the night, and rose our voices in song and and named the grief and named the reckoning of all that we have lost the last 20 years, and had the audacity to lift our gaze to reimagine what we might be, what we might do next. It felt like crossing a threshold. You know, I've organized around hate for the last 20 years, and I'm done. I'm done with that. I am ready now to spend the next 20 years organizing around love. So there's another book in the works that I'm just now beginning to birth, and there is this idea I have around transitioning the Revolutionary Love Project into an institute, into a place that will really equip people with these tools, with these practices, with this inspiration, and bring people like Norma together in community. And so it's been extraordinary for the last few months to hear how, since we've just released our Learning Hub just online, schools are taking the Revolutionary Love framework to make Rev Love the ethic of their school culture. Houses of worship are doing sermon series and practices around it. How do we love thy neighbor for real? Advocacy organizations are doing the same for how to give their activists longevity in the struggle, not to become what we're fighting against. So I think this idea of building an institute and equipping a critical mass of people with how to build beloved community where we are, that is my vision for the next 20 years. And as long as I can remember my own my own promise to breathe and push, I think I will find longevity to make it with you all.
May it happen. Well, Valarie Kaur, spiritual midwife, revolutionary love activist, founder of the Revolutionary Love Project. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate you giving us an hour of your very busy time. And thank you to all of those folks on Facebook Live and in the future on YouTube who will watch this.
It was a joy, Jon. And can I give everyone like a little secret?
Please.
Paperback. Okay. So here's the paperback. This is artwork from Shepard Fairey. He took the Ikom God, the oneness at the heart of my faith, and just turned it into the centerpiece of the portrait. And Amplifier Art then sprinkled some magic over it. So there's a QR code on the back of the book, and I'm just hovering my phone over it. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Revolutionary love is the call of our times. Revolutionary love is when we are brave enough to see no stranger, to look at anyone and think, you are a part of me I do not yet know. So when we flood the streets in our grief and our rage and fight for justice and insist on the humanity of our opponents, we are birthing the world to come that leaves no one behind.
Oh my. Wow.
It's the first book ever that uses augmented reality to bring the author to life. So it's kind of like the secret menu. You can go into bookstores and just like make it come alive. My daughter,
Wow.
she's 2. She thinks all books now talk. She thinks all portraits talk.
What would your grandmothers think of that?
I don't think they would. I know. How would they understand it? I know. You know, Parker Palmer has been a godfather figure to my life. He's the one who taught me, like, don't measure your life based on outcomes. Measure your life based on your faithfulness to the labor, right? So he's just been so I showed this to him in our last virtual tea date, and he was like, I don't know if I've lived too long or I haven't lived long enough.
I understand completely. Wow.
So last just like dose of joy for you all. So
That's fabulous. That's fabulous. All right. Well, even better. Well, thank you very much, Valarie Kaur. It's been an honor and a privilege. And we will hopefully see you in the future in many ways and many places.
You got it. Bye.
All right.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.